Hi, and welcome to my channel where I make dishes inspired by some of my favorite video game characters. Today's dish is inspired by Junah from Metaphor Refantazio. I was immediately invested in Junah as a character when I met her in the game. I loved her design with her long and somewhat poofy hair, and of course her trademark shiny Nydia eyes. I pretty quickly fell in love with her voice like the citizens of Grand Trad did, but not really her actual singing voice, her speaking voice. Everyone in Metaphor Refantazio has a very distinct and interesting accent, but Junah stuck out to me a little bit more because I didn't expect such a thick and strong voice on such a beautiful character. I switched Junah into my party as soon as I got her and was saved many of times by her strong magic spells and her awesome mass dancer archetype. To make a dish for Junah, I was really inspired to focus on butter for 3 reasons. 1. Her accent just sounded like she would appreciate a good buttery dish. 2. Her hair is somewhat similar in color to butter. And 3. Her voice is as smooth as butter. So I knew butter would be one of the stars of the dish, but I also felt like Junah would adore a dessert focused on fruits. A fruit similar to her hair is a juicy and sweet peach, and her shiny and round blue eyes remind me of a delicious blueberry. Therefore, I decided on a peach and blueberry Butterswim biscuit with a sweet glaze on top. This dish is truly so easy to make and throw together and will help Junah give you the performance of a lifetime. Here's what we'll need to make the biscuits. Unsalted butter, melted and at room temperature, all-purpose flour, baking powder, salt, granulated sugar, buttermilk, 1 large peach, and blueberries. For the glaze specifically, we'll need powdered sugar, vanilla extract, and whole milk. We'll start everything off by preheating our oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit, and we'll grease an 8x8 inch baking dish with baking spray. As stated earlier, we need unsalted butter melted and at room temperature, so we'll start with that. In a bowl, I'll melt a 1/2 cup or 1 stick of unsalted butter, then I'll pour it into my prepared baking dish. In the dish, the butter has a larger surface area and should cool pretty quickly while you prepare the rest of the dish. That being said, before we start combining more ingredients, I usually place the baking dish onto a wider cookie or baking sheet, because as the dish bakes, it rises quite a bit, and some of the butter can start to seep over the tops of the dish. The large sheet will prevent the butter from dripping onto the bottom of your oven. Anyways, now that our butter is cooling, we'll start the batter. In a large bowl, you'll sift in 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. You'll then add in 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 2 teaspoons of salt, and 1/3 cup of sugar. Whisk everything generally together and then create a small well in the center of the bowl. Into the well, we'll pour in 2 cups of buttermilk. Grab a rubber spatula and mix everything together so there is no more visible dry flour, but don't overmix, as there should still be plenty of lumps and clumps in the batter. If you haven't already, now's the time to peel, pit, and chop a large peach. You need 3/4 cup of peach, which comes out to about 1 peach. I had 2 peaches in case during this video, but I only needed 1. Once your peach is ready, toss it into the batter bowl. You'll also need 3/4 cup of washed and dried blueberries. Once both fruit are in the batter bowl, start folding everything together gently with your rubber spatula until the fruit is well incorporated. Yes, it's truly as simple as that. From here, we'll pour the batter into our prepared baking dish and flatten the batter so it spreads over the surface in an even layer. As you spread the batter, the butter should rise to the top. This is completely expected, so don't feel like you're making a mess if the butter and batter start to kind of mesh together. We'll then grab a butter knife and section the biscuits in the dish into 9 sections, kind of like a tic-tac-toe board. We can then pop the dish into the oven to bake for 30 to 40 minutes until golden brown and cook through. The texture of these biscuits is interesting, so it's totally okay if they feel a little stodgy, but of course make sure it's still cooked through and not raw. Now, while the biscuits are in the oven, go ahead and make your sweet glaze. In a small bowl, add in 1.5 cups of powdered sugar, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and 2 tablespoons of whole milk. Whisk everything together until the glaze is nice and smooth and any clumps of powdered sugar are broken up. From here, you'll probably have some time on your hands while you wait for the biscuits to finish baking. Use your free time however you'd like, But once the biscuits are done baking, we'll remove them from the oven and let them cool. Of course, they'll be pretty hot. Let them cool for at least 5 minutes before drizzling with the glaze. And from there, feel free to grab a slice whenever you're ready, just make sure not to burn your tongue. Butterswim biscuits have become a bit of a craze recently, and it's so clear to me why that is. They're much easier than standard biscuits, as you don't have to worry about your butter being cold and there's no kneading or shaping involved. I love experimenting with so many different flavor combinations, but I love this mix of peach and blueberry as it has such a sweet, tangy, and fresh flavor. The biscuits are so fluffy and soft, and the hint of sweetness on the top is the perfect touch. This dish also goes so well with so many different circumstances. Sure, it's a dessert, but it's also a nice and decadent snack and could even be a quick and easy breakfast meal. In Metaphor Refantazio, we see all of our great party members cooking, and Junah has some pretty intriguing and memorable dishes. She makes mention of loving to experiment with her dishes, as only following a recipe would be so boring. I picture she loves to make these biscuits, and while peach and blueberry are her go-to, she would have fun throwing all sorts of ingredients in, be they sweet or savory. I think everyone on the Gauntlet Runner would love to have a taste of her concoctions. Who knows, you might even hear her humming and singing new tunes as she works along in the kitchen. The recipe card is in the video description if you'd like a more quick and concise version to give it a try. Like if you want a bite, subscribe for more geeky treats, and comment what foods Junah reminds you of. Thanks for following along.